The Chinese region has always been unanimously regarded as the worst region when it comes to competitive play. In every single World Finals, no Chinese team has made it past round 1. And in last year's World Finals, there wasn't even a Chinese side in the competition. However, in the recent Brawl Cup, they absolutely shocked the world.
Full HP, and RBM has to dive in at a perfect time. Last call goes on the ground, and it's down to their final life. Shockwaves sent across North America. Chinese mainland has done the unthinkable here in Dallas.
But how did these 3 Chinese players go from first round exits to beating the best teams in North and South America? Let's break it down. The 2025 Toxic Lotus squad consists of 3 players: OU, Talk, and Engine. However, the Phantom 4th member also poses an important role of the team's success. He is none other than the coach and also the drafter of the team, Star Dragon. In 2025, having a good drafter is even more important than having the best player in the world, as a hard draft counter kills any skill gaps in players. And Star Dragon is undoubtedly the best drafter in mainland China, but we'll get to him later on in the video. And right now, let's start with OU, as he was the first member to step foot on the competitive scene. His career started in early 2020, where he was scooped up by Nova Esports, playing with fellow Chinese players Huda and Curry. Well, not this Curry. Anyways, the Chinese region back then was very interesting, only having 3 monthly finals held in 2020. Despite OU qualifying for all 3 monthly finals, he was unable to take a single victory, losing in the first round during June's and losing in the semis during the following 2 months. And by the end of the year, OU's Nova Esports finished in 4th place, failing to qualify for Worlds. However, OU would come back stronger in 2021. He decided to stay with Nova Esports, who just recruited 3 new players, with them being Aspertime, Today, and Captain. And the 4 of them might just be the most regionally dominating team in the history of Brawl Stars, as in 2021 there were 8 monthly finals held, and Nova won 8 for 8, winning every monthly finals and were the absolute champions of the Chinese region. And in the same year, Talk, who was known as White back in the days, also started his competitive career at Trick of China. And although he was no match to OU in 2021, his team still clinched a 2nd place finish and qualified to that year's World Finals, meaning that Talk and OU both took part in the first World Finals, not as teammates but as enemies. However, the 2021 World Finals did not go well for the both of them. Starting with Talk, his team was drawn to Queen Nai, who was the number 2 seed from the APAC region. And although both teams were the 2nd best team from their own region, the skill difference is massive. In the bounty set, Queen Nai were 20 stars ahead of Trick of China despite the drafts being pretty even. And with the 2nd set being on split, Talk goes for a fantastic Rico draft but was unable to hold down the right-sided lane. I would argue that the draft here was on Trick of China's side, but the skill gap definitely costed Trick of China the set. 2-0 down and Trick of China hasn't even won a single game. The skill difference again was displayed in the 3rd set. Right here, Imp saw Kenji entering the left bush, but still does not retreat or even shoot him, allowing Kenji to charge his spear, which resulted in the finishing push of the game. Small details like this might be minute, but many small mistakes leads to them losing 6-0 against Queen Nai, ending Talk's first World Finals run. And on the other side of the bracket, OU's Nova Esports got a very tough draw against Clash, which at that time included the squad of Gie, Chaos, and Lanan. Yeah, I think we all know who the winner is here. They got absolutely smashed to the floor against EU's 2nd seed, showing to everyone the levels between the Big 4 region and mainland China. And in 2022, the mainland China region went back to some weird tournament formats. 16 teams were qualified to the elimination rounds, in which 3 teams were invited directly. 12 teams entered through the open qualifiers, and the last teams were the winner of the Huawei qualifiers, treated like the last chance qualifiers we have right now. The 16 teams were then divided into 2 groups of 8, and the 2 top teams from each group advances to the Chinese finals. Yeah, I don't know why they did this to be honest, but both Nova and Raconic breezed through the respective group brackets by sweeping everyone. By the way, Raconic Esports acquired the roster of Trick of China, hence the change in their name. And in the first round of the Chinese finals, Nova were up against this Chinese team, where OU easily defeated them in 4 sets. Unfortunately, I could not find any video clips of this tournament, so I'm just gonna quickly skim through it. On the other side of the bracket, Talk's Raconic Esports barely scrapped a 3-2 victory against Tiger Bro, meaning that OU and Talk would meet in the finals, where the winner advances to the World Finals. However, the results were just like the year before, where Nova towered over Reconic Esports with a 6-0 sweep. Therefore, Nova takes the crown and qualifies for Worlds. At least that was supposed to happen. But due to visa issues, the roster of Nova Esports weren't able to travel to Worlds together, and Reconic Esports were given the slot, and also the responsibility to represent the Chinese region.
Make a maximum amount of noise for Talk and Reconic Esports!
However, their first round opponents were the notorious SK Gaming, and let's just say that they were no match for the European team. I mean, SK simply just crushed them in all 3 sets, and in set 3, Reconic could not even get a single bit of damage on SK's high safe, and the mainland China region were yet again first round exits.
And SK Gaming will move on to the next round of the competition.
However, the end of one chapter starts the beginning of another. As the 2023 season began, Talk and Koalano decided to team up with OU and Engine, and this was the beginning stages of the current Toxic Lotus squad. Similar to the prior years, the Chinese finals were held and the winner earns the golden ticket to the World Finals. In the elimination round, Trick of China were supposed to play in Group D. However, their other 2 opponents were disqualified and they were instantly promoted to the playoffs. However, I don't think it was a problem even if they played, as Trick of China went on to absolutely smoke their opponents, sweeping everyone in the playoffs and easily advances to the Chinese finals. And of course, they destroyed their first round opponents as usual by winning 6 games in a row. In the second round, they were up against Venice, and something odd happened in Game 1, as Venice were the first team to even win a game off Trick of China throughout the entire tournament. However, Trick of China were able to bounce back and take the first 2 sets. And in set 3, a major blunder from Janet led to the finishing goal of the match.
Pass through to the Evs, low HP, they're on all sides of things. The Janet bombs are not going to be enough. It is going to be a goal. United TOC do the unthinkable. They are in the grand finals, locking themselves in for the LCQ as a bare minimum.
However, due to the playoffs being double brackets, Venice were able to win in the losers bracket and get one final chance at revenge. And well, they almost got their revenge.
Coming in really quick, well, and that is going to be a goal with 20 seconds. Is there going to be enough time for Venice to be able to make a response? Because if not, United TSC are going to the World Finals.
13 seconds left. They need to answer now. Our World Finals ticket may as well just go in. There's been a great super pass up to Story. Is he going to be able to slot it in time? No, he doesn't. A great defense in the end. 3 seconds left. Does he have enough time to slot it in? And he doesn't. No way. No way! Trick of China somehow managed to win that one in the end. I mean,
if given one more second, Venice had a chance to make the greatest comeback in history. However, there were no buzzer beaters on the day and Trick of China barely qualified for Worlds. And just before the World Finals began, BC Gaming acquired their roster.
OU White and Engine have been working so hard on boot camp in Sweden. And now they're here to show what China can do on the Brawl Stars stage.
OU and Talk had terrible World Finals appearances in the past, always being swept out in the first round. However, this time they went into the group stages looking solid. Against the #1 seed from NA West, BC were able to take the lead. The underdogs were now suddenly one set away from a triumph against NA's top team.
Being able to transplant that bush is key, but White goes over the top. It's an aggressive pop and straight into the face of Cheeto. And White's no stranger to a little bit of argy-bargy. And BC Gaming find themselves 2 sets to 1 up.
However, LG was able to take set 4 and what happens next was absolute cinema.
That is 10 gems now, and BC Gaming have to go for it, but Charles comes in with a shockwave and catches OU. All the gems spilt over the ground. And BC Gaming comes so close, but not close enough. Luminosity Gaming snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
But BC still had one final chance of advancing. Due to LG also winning against Revenant, BC's last hope was a victory against Revenant if they wished to continue their run. And these Chinese boys again pushed Revenant to a set 5 decider.
But no time left. Revenant Esports, they've completely defended it. BC Gaming all out of gas, and they're going home with Revenant Esports going on to day 3.
And a 3-2 loss against Revenant nails BC Gaming's World Finals run in the coffin. But if you look at this positively, this was still China's best run into a World Finals. Compared to the World Finals in the past where they were swept, this time they were only slightly away from victory. And in 2024, the three of them will leave BC Gaming and play under the name we all know and love, Toxic Lotus. In 2024, the format remained the same, and Toxic Lotus acquired the crucial drafter Star Dragon. And just like last year, Toxic Lotus were the kings of China. But due to the addition of the last chance qualifiers, Toxic Lotus were sent to the LCQs instead of directly heading into Helsinki. They were placed in Group B with Totem and Na'Vi, with Totem having Chaos and Na'Vi having a Choppy. Toxic Lotus has a slim chance of reaching the playoffs. And the group was dominated by Totem, where they took a victory against both Na'Vi and Toxic Lotus, meaning that the decider match was between Na'Vi and Lotus. If Toxic Lotus don't win against Na'Vi, this will be the end of the 2024 season. And well, they somehow pulled it off.
Zuko getting blown out of the water there, OU with a bit of a lucky there. Nice pull coming out here from Engine. White to follow up, and everything has fallen apart for the side of Na'Vi. That gem being picked up by OU just to secure it there. We see Na'Vi respawning on the other side, but they are a little bit too late. There is nothing that Na'Vi can do to stop this. Toxic Lotus, they dropped game number 1, but they run away with game number 2 and 3. I dare say in such a dominant fashion. It doesn't connect here with 10 seconds left on the ticket. Pushing back Suzuku. He's bought so much valuable time. And you're going to be bringing down a choppy wipe. Suzuku versus the world. He manages to collect by Blue Star firmly in OU's hands. And ladies and gentlemen, Na'Vi will not make it to game number 2. The smiles, the elation, the joy as China have finally put themselves on the map.
Meaning that they were advancing to the playoffs against South America's second seed, FUT Esports. But that match did not go well for Toxic Lotus at all. But I don't know what happened in 2025. Maybe they went on those anime training arcs or whatever, as this year's Toxic Lotus seems much more polished than all of their past years. Going into the mainland China finals, they swept every single opponent going into the finals, giving them the only slot to participate in the Brawl Cup. And the best underdog story was about to take place in Dallas. They were placed in Group B, and their first match was against the world champions, Humble. And against the world champ difference, Toxic Lotus were unable to even take a set off Humble. And I think Star Dragon's draft were a bit off in the first match. Gray on Dueling Beetles has always been a good pick for quick controls of the zone. However, his DPS were nowhere near enough for the Barry Frank combo from Humble. And in set 2, I feel like the max draft could definitely be improved. Although Tox's mechanics as a max was really good, there's definitely better brawlers where he could put his skills into better use. Although it seems like the Chinese were swept as usual, the gameplay display this time was much more promising. They were then dropped into the losers bracket where they would face Tribe Gaming. And the match against Tribe fully showcased the importance of Star Dragon. With set 1 being on Heist, Lotus goes for Miko.
Decent. Ooh, okay. I was going to talk about Bo. We can table that. Miko. Whoa!
Okay, in we come now with that out of frame super. To dive on the safe once more and to go back to work. Tribe have to get going here. They've got to get busy. They've got the invulnerability phase here, but they haven't triggered the last one of Toxic Lotus now. The Miko might just get the feast on this safe. 24% still here for Toxic Lotus. Engine too hard to catch it. Blink and you'll miss it. First set taken here.
With Miko's second star power, he becomes a strong DPS brawler on the safe. However, Miko is still an absurdly high skill cap brawler, but Engine pulls it off effortlessly. Although Tribe were able to equalize the sets by grabbing Hot Zone, Star Dragon goes for another genius draft into Shade. And let's just say that watching Talk playing Shade gave me some PTSDs.
Trying a little bit last month, but this guy's just an issue right now. Now he's lurking on the top-hand side. What's Zeus supposed to do? He can go through walls, cycling another one as well. It's gonna pick a teleport to get out of there, but he can't even use it. He's striking so quickly.
And in the fourth set, history was finally made for the mainland China region. They advanced to the next match against Loud, who were just destroyed by Humble. Despite that, they went into the match with great momentum, absolutely smoking Toxic Lotus in Brawl Ball. Then in set 2, Loud sailed on their momentum and were one set away from winning the set. But the underdogs weren't giving up now.
Boom. Hit shot. Double kill.
Talk now trying to circle around the right side. Beams down. Etinho with the super to try and finish off.
Now. Here comes the stun! The takedown!
What a finish! Toxic Lotus with the set win. Engine's gonna go for it. Fire Pro and Fire Dog are well aware. They're gonna get whatever they can. Hypercharge, it's super available. As much defense as possible, but you can't chip through that. OU in close range. All right! He's able to take down! Dino closing in range and OU with tons of damage. It's chipping down to nothing.
There we go, another layer of invulnerability there for Toxic. Lotus is safe, but 19% is left and they're still going after it. OU sends a couple of boomerangs in. First, it was a set win, then a match taken LCQ, and now Toxic Lotus stand amongst the top 4 teams in the Brawl world. They're taking on all challenges to advance to Championship Sunday.
This was the first time where a Chinese team has reached the semi-finals in a LAN tournament. However, their next opponent were the reigning kings of Europe, SK Gaming. But this game turned out much more closer than everyone expected. SK were the ones to take the lead in Hot Zone. However, the Chinese were able to overtake the lead with fantastic plays in the next 2 sets. Unfortunately for them, SK were not an ordinary team, and they would take set 4. Toxic Lotus forcing SK to set 5 was already an outstanding achievement. But if they could clinch the win, they would only be 1 game away from a LAN trophy.
Finds that damage on Engine here and he goes down. Toxic to fall, and this could be it, folks. The curtain call for Toxic Lotus. Joker's lost it. And for SK Gaming, this is just another bump in the road.
But they would still be a step short, ending their Brawl Cup run as 4th place after a loss to Zeta Division. But their performances in the Brawl Cup was already enough to shock the world. And when they returned to China, they would absolutely crush the elimination rounds. And after that, they would demolish the China finals and head into LCQs as the kings of China. Would these 3 Chinese players create history again in the LCQ, or would they fall short like they did last year? Well, I guess that's the story of OU Engine and Talk.